Hello everybody and welcome to the world of Soulforge, the Weight of Choice, a brand new tabletop RPG that is incredibly sandboxing. On the right of the screen that I'm currently sharing, we have just the cover art that I've been using for quite a number of years at this point, done by a very talented artist whose links to their Twitter feed will be posted in the description. On the right, however, we have a tool that will help me kind of edit myself, which is the work in progress character sheet. It has not been formatted. It is literally just the most basic bare bones of some of it, which is constantly edited to make sure I have everything on it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. So, some of the basics of SoulForge that we can go over is SoulForge is a sandbox RPG, meaning that there's a very large quantity of player customization, which we'll kind of go over throughout this video. Ultimately, the thing that needs to be understood is that this particular game is what is called a point buy system. Now, a point buy system, for those who are unaware, is that in standard games, especially RPGs, what you have are experience and levels. As you gain experience, you then gain levels. And that's pretty much it. The levels then give you whatever that level gives you. It literally depends on the game, so I can't come up with 8 million examples for that. So instead what it is that you use points, which you can keep track of right here. Oops, kind of messed up on that one, but hey, what can you do to purchase ranks. Now the ranks can be applied quite literally starting here, which is in your stats, your attributes, some of your traits, capabilities, talents, all of the skills, and basically that's it. So, and don't worry, I will go back over what some of the stuff is. No worries there. So starting at the very top of the character sheet, we have species. Now species is what species your character is. I don't really know how else to explain that. That it's both a physical appearance as well as certain standard attributes given within that species, whether it be cultural, biological, whatever the circumstances might be. But as of right now, there are currently 10 total playable species on this particular cover art. I will go through an example of 4 of them. On the very far right, we have the Risen, followed by human, followed by anima, followed by the Fae. Now, an anima is kind of just a generic term for anthropomorphized feral creatures. This one just happens to be a wolf, but they come in a very large variety of shapes and colors, just so everybody is aware. Up next, we have backgrounds. Now, backgrounds is basically just the origins of your character. Where did they spend their youth, whether that be in school, military training, elementalism, things like that. It just kind of depends. It just provides additional starting points for the character. However, neither the species nor the background lock a character into a certain build path. Part of the benefit of a point buy system is that you can actually change your build and how it functions over time over the course of the game. It just kind of depends on how much you need. Next up is soul. Soul is, well, kind of what the namesake is. You're forging a character. You're forging the soul of that character. Now, this is a mechanic that I'm still kind of fleshing out, but the basics of the game is soul is used to unlock masteries, further traits, further capabilities. It's kind of an added resource where if you wanted to think about it in a real life circumstance, imagine that you go to school for 8 years. You spent a portion of your soul obtaining those particular skills. It's just that simple, I think. But regardless, moving down, points and ranks gained. Now, ranks gained is quite literally just how many ranks you have purchased beyond character creation. One of the things to note is that I have a uniform amount of ranks given both as a blank character sheet, so things that every character starts with. The total number of ranks given by the species matches across all 10 species, and background, the same thing. In order to determine if you ever lose track of how many ranks you gained, which is going to determine your character rank, is you add up all of the numbers on your character sheet and subtract the numbers. And the best part is all of those values will be displayed on the how to roll a character part of the source book. Which leads a good segue into character rank. Character rank is basically just a tool. It is designed to help both the players as well as the game master determine what kinds of enemies, missions, assignments, and campaigns that the party should be going around. It kind of does really nothing else beyond that, and again, if you need help figuring out what your character rank is, well, one of the best things that you have is the ranks gained, and all you have to do is subtract from it. Moving on down, we have how to keep track of one's livelihood, which is how alive your character is. Here's right over here we have wounds. Wounds is a very low number to begin with, but it can be modified through skills, certain attributes, which is actually, I really shouldn't bother saying certain attributes, it's literally just vigor, as well as certain capabilities, increases the total number of wounds that you have. Over here, however, is damage threshold. Damage threshold is how much damage your character can take before they become injured or take a wound. Now, this number is the one that takes a flux all over the place because it can be modified by attributes, it can be modified by spells, elemental techniques, certain combat maneuvers, traits. It also is modified by capabilities, some skills add to it, equipment, of course. Basically, it's a very, very changeable number. When that value hits 0, you take 1 wound, and then it goes back to its total value, which allows you to keep track of it. The best way to determine or understand, I should say, how damage threshold work is, let's take a real life example. Person A and person B both fall out of a second story window for whatever reason. Not going to get into the semantics. Person A is basically able to brush it off with minor injury, a few cuts, bruises. They'll definitely be feeling it in the morning, but nothing too severe. While person B, on the other hand, has anywhere from moderate to severe injury just from it. Person A has a high damage threshold, while person B has a low damage threshold. And that's just kind of how it works. Now, this game has 3 additional resources, which is stamina, mana, and energy. Stamina is a resource that governs combat maneuvers, which, in case you're curious, is basically your standard combatants, which is somewhat in the name, but what it means is a physical style ability that often is beyond the normal scope. For example, when you're running, it takes a while to get up to your max speed. It's not instantaneous. However, there is a way to do so. From there, you have mana. Mana is very straightforward. It just governs spell casting. That's about it. It just governs how many spells you can cast. Energy, on the other hand, is often used by traits, capabilities, but more importantly, elemental techniques, which we'll get into what each of those are mechanically, functionally, and all of that in further videos. Right now, this is just an introduction, and I don't want to ramble too much. Next up, we have the 7 attributes that I have, which is might, vigor, speed, awareness, intellect, personality, and control. To give a quick explanation, might is just simply your physical strength and physical capabilities. Vigor is your physical endurance. Speed is not only how fast you physically are, but how well your reaction time is applied as well. Awareness is quite literally just perception, being aware of your surroundings, a variety of situations. Basically, if you need to be perceptive, that's the stat for you. Intellect, on the other hand, is quite literally your character's intelligence. Pretty straightforward. Wisdom, however, is something subjective to each player, while also allowing some interesting character development and growth, because wisdom is something that is obtained through experience, not something that people inherently have. Personality is how personable your character is. These are things like your speech checks, intimidation, determining if somebody is lying, how well you can personally lie, and so on and so forth. Control, however, is just flat your mental endurance. That's just about it, as well as how well you can control casting without it backfiring on you. Next up, we have traits, capabilities, and talents. Now, I'm lumping these 3 together because they're more or less the same thing, which is characters' abilities. These are both passive and active effects. In some cases, it just depends on what it is. Traits are related towards your species. These are something that is found among every member of that species. Of the 10 playable species, all of them will have anywhere from 1 to 4. Then we move on to capabilities. Capabilities are something that are found across every species, regardless of literally anything. As you can see, there's a maximum number of 8. The reason behind this is because it's just a nice even number and fits with, well, the whole base mechanics of the game, which is operating on 4s and 12s primarily. As you can see, there are a maximum of 4 traits, maximum of 8 capabilities, giving a total of 12. Capabilities are something that help round out a character, but we'll again get into that way more in depth in a later video. This is just an introduction. Talents are something that are obtained in game. These are things that people can learn how to do, whether it's a passive or active effect. Takes time. Right now, I'm still working on quite a few of them, but it is what it is. Next up, we have the skills. There are a total of 39 skills and 1 species skills. All 10 species have their own individual unique skill, which rounds out to a nice even 40 number. The categories are knowledge skills, mystic skills, subterfuge skills, physical skills, technological skills, technological skills, crafting skills. So it's fairly straightforward. When I go through the skills video, I'll go through each one. But one thing I will quickly mention is that the skill system of SoulForge is based off of a benchmark. Now, the easiest way to understand that benchmark system is, let's go to physics, just because it's the first one I can think of off the top of my head. At rank 1, which most people can invest in if they want, all skills can technically be rank 0. It doesn't particularly matter. But in order to roll a skill check, you at least need to have 1 rank in that skill. So at physics rank 1, that would be an elementary understanding of physics. It's very basic, nothing special. But let's throw a hypothetical one. At rank 25, you unlock college level physics. So you jump up in that level, and so on and so forth. The more points you invest in the skill, the greater understanding of the topic that you have. It's quite literally that easy. Next up on the agenda is we have what I'm calling the equipment page. I'm going to scroll out a bit just to there we go. So damage reduction is the core defense of the game. The reason behind that is because, as you can see in this picture over here, they're using guns. Guns are very hard to dodge, especially bullets. Well, actually, the gun being hit at you would not be particularly difficult. However, dodging a bullet, that's a different story. You have physical damage, which is the most common type of damage that you're going to come across in it. There's both magic skills, multiple elements, basically a lot causes physical damage. Heat-based damage is your fire damage or anything that causes extreme heat. Pretty easy. Cold, same thing, just in the inverse. Colder environments, the ice element, and so on and so forth. Electrical is also through primarily non-lethal forms. For example, one of the more melee weapons used is a taser. It causes electrical damage. I don't know if anybody who's watching this video has ever been hit with a taser. It is not fun. Poison damage is kind of its own thing. It's a nice roundabout way of having a status effect that also causes a direct effect. There's also poisonous gas, various other things, so poison damage is actually relevant. Acid is not the same as poison. I know that sounds self-explanatory, but I see a lot of games that group up the two together. Other sources of acid damage are primarily liquid, sometimes a gaseous state, but most of the time they are a liquid state, and it causes a corrosive effect. Acid damage is very good at dealing with armor, just so we are clear. Next up, we have some of the more standard combat ones. Starting over here, we have casting. This is your percent chance to successfully cast a spell. Now, one thing I will say about SoulForge, I have found that it is actually easier to have a number greater than 100 instead of trying to figure out you have 100 plus, your modifiers, modifier reductions. So what it is casting effects are quite literally just how well you can cast is your base, and then whatever modifiers you have that add to it, you add to the total, and then anything that would imply a negative modifier, you subtract from, and that's your casting total. You roll a percentile, and that comes with the territory. If you roll under that value, You quite literally cast a spell. If not, there's a particular chart that you will have to roll on. Up next, we have accuracy. Accuracy is basically your firearm potential to hit. Now, this is best described as you're not aiming, you are just simply firing for the sole purpose of it. Like casting, it's a percentage, and you apply similar mechanics and concepts. Precision, on the other hand, is a precise shot. You are taking time to line up that shot, aim it, whatever you want to call it, it all functionally works the same, to inflict higher levels of damage, potential status effects, non crucial things, so on and so forth. It's a more targeted, specific effect. And again, it operates the same with the percentage roll. Next up, you have Strike. Strike is related towards melee hits as well as elemental techniques, which is very important. Important as elementalism is actually one of the most common forms of magical, in quotations, magical means. Parry is within certain combat maneuvers as well as elemental techniques, you can use it as a parry action as long as it states that you can. You can to either interrupt, mitigate, or counter an incoming attack. In this case, if it is a parry action, the two parties involved will roll their appropriate d12 together. As a result, whoever has the higher number gets the higher success. In the event of a tie, and this is total number value, not the dice roll value. In the event of a tie, the two attacks cancel. If the attack value is lower and you try to parry, you're getting hit with the damage. Dodge is a static number. This is how likely you are to be hit. Now, there are also, again, some combat maneuvers, spells, elemental techniques, and so on that can be used on a successful dodge called a dodge action, which we'll also get into more of those intricacies later, but it's just kind of a basic explanation. Um, from there, we have your physical gear, which I also just realized I do not have weapon equipment, but assume there's weapon equipment that I will add at some point. You have what's called encumbrance level and carry capacity. The current mechanics, which I'm still working on, is your encumbrance level comes in four varieties: less than 10%, 25% or less, 50% or less, or at capacity, which is 100% or greater. This affects your actual speed. Now, the reason why this might be relevant is quite literally because one of the element natures influences this, along with certain magic. It's a movement restriction mechanic. Nothing more, nothing less. Carry capacity is how you determine your encumbrance level. And there's a variety of mechanics that can increase that, decrease that. It's just a whole ordeal. Next up, we have the 5 equipment slots that you have access to, which is your head, chest, legs, hands, and feet, which have two primary defensive values: your armor, which protects against physical damage, poison damage, and acid damage. Now, I should also note, while most chest, leg, hand, and feet armor do offer very minor poison resistance, head armor is often where you find your highest poison resistance, as in this game, the majority of helmets that you wear will have a face mask, which does help quite a lot with that. Shielding value is for the other three mechanics, which is heat, cold, and electrical damage. They are usually a type of power source augmentation. To give an example, right here, our little wolf man over here, how it's glowing over here, these means that his shields are energized, and more than likely are active. While over here, very minorly active, and of course for our shock trooper up here, not so active, which is a minor problem depending on the circumstances of where they're currently at. But that's basically it. When it comes to gear, I'll go over it, but it has 3 primary effects. Enchantments, which are fairly rare, as even in the modern age of Soulforge, fusing technology and magic is still a very questionable and researched area of expertise, because for some reason the refinement of technology does not mesh very well with magic. That's probably because mana wants to be free and technology is refined, so they just probably don't work out together. From there, you can also have materials. Certain materials that you can find in the game have natural effects that can be applied to the armor when done by a crafter of appropriate skill. The last one are augmentations or enhancements. I haven't decided on which one I want. I'm leaning towards enhancement just because that makes more sense, which are things built into the armor through technological means. The best example I can give is primarily with firearms, and the most basic one would be a scope. Quite literally, that's it. Up next, we have proficiencies and their ranks. Now, proficiencies have two categories: when you are proficient with something or you have mastered something. Proficiency is, the best way I can explain it is a language. Most people are proficient in the language that they are native to. In my case, for example, that's English, or at least I like to think I'm proficient in it. Um, and it just has a rank value that is 0 to 100. When whatever proficiency you have can be mastered, the first step is that rank has to hit 100. From there, you spend soul in order to master it, which resets the value while maintaining the original bonuses you got during the proficiency. Mastery, on the other hand, can go beyond 100. Because you can always continue to perfect and refine. I'm still working on the mechanics of how to increase it beyond 100, but I probably should have mentioned this earlier. This game is in pre-alpha as it is right now, but hey, a good introductory video is a good introductory video. Character powers. Now these are your spells, elemental techniques, and your combat maneuvers, which is quite literally the power name. What is it? What does it do? How much does it cost, which is just a numerical value, and then you can circle M, E, or S. M for mana, E for energy, and S for stamina. Certain of these ones have a durational effect, which you write here, damage output, and then what does it actually do. And that's basically the character sheet. Hopefully it gives a relatively solid idea of what Soulforge is, at least on a surface level. If you are curious for more, feel free to subscribe to the channel. There's also an open Discord link in which pretty much anyone can join. I am looking for feedback as it is, as the only person working on this game is, well, me. I have no one else, so I'm always free to answer questions, comments, concerns, things like that. I also do appreciate comments, largely because if you're just curious but you don't want to join the question, or join the question, join the Discord server, well, what you can do is post your question on the comment section below, and I can answer it basically whenever. It lets me know that I have a comment. Um, Without further ado, have a whole good rest of your day, and we'll call it good. Have a good one. See you in the next video.